Ireland, April 23rd, 1014. A clash that would decide the fate of the High King of Ireland and the Vikings of Dublin. The Battle of Clontarf. For decades, Ireland was a patchwork of rival tribes and kingdoms. An unlikely leader rose to unite the island, Brian Boru, the High King of Munster. He had risen to power after a lifetime of fighting the Viking invaders before mastering his own clan and usurping the former High King of Ireland. Eventually, he brought even the Vikings of Dublin to heel. In years past, he had defeated the Viking lord of Dublin, Sigtryg Silkbeard, and forced his vassalization, sealing the arrangement by marrying his own daughter to Sigtryg. However, in 1014, the Vikings of Dublin rose once again in rebellion, joined by the forces of Leinster and the Vikings from the Isle of Man and the Orkneys. On Good Friday, 1014, the combined Viking forces met Brian's army near the river Tolka at Clontarf, just outside Dublin. The fighting was brutal. Vikings, Irish, and mercenaries clashed in an all-day bloodbath. The stories tell that men became fatigued as their spears became heavy, weighted down by bloodied, tangled hair of butchered enemies. As the battle went on, the heavy Viking infantry clashed with Brian's lighter infantry, and Brian's own son, his chosen heir Murchad, led a charge that broke through the Viking lines. As the Viking host collapsed, they fled to their ships, and the Irish descended upon them, where they broke the might of Dublin. But victory was hollow. In ensuring the rout, Brian's son Murchad was killed, along with Brian's grandson. And finally, amid the slaughter, Brian's own bodyguard were carried away, chasing fleeing Vikings. While Brian was left exposed, a Viking ambush took the king's life. The Battle of Clontarf was a pivotal point in Irish history, both breaking the Vikings of Dublin and ending Brian Boru's short-lived dynasty. Following the battle, Ireland once again fragmented and never again held the dream of a strong High King. Today we're refighting this battle using Triumph. This game starts with pre-battle maneuvers determining the layout of the field. In our Battle of Clontarf, two significant pieces of terrain dominate the action: a small village on the outskirts of Dublin and a grove of trees that forms a choke point at the center of the battlefield. The Viking host is comprised mainly of heavy foot, with elite foot huscarls acting as their reserve. The Vikings position their light infantry to the left wing, facing the grove. Meanwhile, the Irish take the measure of the field, drumming out into a long line of battle, with their light foot reserves in the center and skirmishes and rabble placed opposite of the Vikings at the grove. The day opens with the Vikings methodically marching forward, while the Irish center holds back, opting instead to advance on both flanks towards the village and forest. Immediately, the skirmishers clash in the woods on the Viking left. The clash is quick and decisive, with the Viking rabble shattering before the Irish, and the skirmishers fleeing from the woods. Meanwhile, the Irish also begin working around the Viking right. It's at this moment that Sigtryg must decide how to devote his attention.
Alright, leader of Oh Great Dublin, we're getting into the game here. How's it looking?
Looking pretty desperate on my left flank. It's a bit of a mess, and we're going to try to rally the troops over here on the left before we get to the camp.
Alright, let's see how it goes.
In this moment of choice, the Vikings opt to pull their elite foot reserves to cut off the Irish push through the grove. They form a column and march to the flank. Simultaneously, the Vikings peel off their heavy foot to form a shield wall and drive off the Irish, threatening their right flank. In the following turns, the Irish largely hold back in the center, spreading their attention, maneuvering their flanking forces. But well-timed attacks from Viking skirmishers delay the Irish attack through the grove. The Vikings resound the attack and begin marching their center forward, confident their shield wall will crush the Irish. Finally, the Viking huscarls crash into the Irish flanking force, throwing the Irish into disarray. However, the rout is slowed, as the Vikings have difficulty pursuing the Irish through the woods. Brian Boru is now faced with his own decision. With his flanking forces repelled or thrown into disarray, victory appears to be slipping away. In this moment, the Irish must make a fateful choice.
Well, you actually gave me something to think about there. That center is looking a bit dangerous. All right, let's see what we can do here. This is an important command roll.
Wow.
Oh, it's good. It's the best it could be.
While the Irish stand no chance throwing themselves against a well-formed shield wall, they can take advantage of the lack of central reserves. They attack the exposed Viking flank with their own reserves. Irish success comes early on the left side of the Vikings' center as it begins to collapse. Success is not without cost. The shield wall smashes through the Irish line. However, the Irish still have reserves for just such an eventuality, and quickly and efficiently plug the gap. As the fighting reaches its apex, the Viking line continues to roll up, and the Vikings attempt to strike down Murchad.
A desperate final Viking assault on the Irish general.
But he escapes. As the hours of the day wane, the Vikings break as their center is surrounded and ultimately destroyed. Our Battle of Clontarf ended in an Irish victory. The Irish took heavy casualties in the fighting but were able to crush the might of Dublin. Brian and his son Murchad remain safe for now.